Hello guys, welcome to the next session of implementing CRUD operations using Spring Boot version 3. In the last session we discussed on how we can set up the basic Spring Boot 3 project, and alongside we have created all the folder like package structures, and alongside we have added all the dependencies, and we have created entity class, and then we have implemented our MySQL database connection into the project also. Now in this session we are going to create the very first REST API in order to save the employee details into the database. So let's see how we can do this. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to just go to the employee controller, and then the very first thing that we have to do is we have to add one new REST API. So let me just give the name as public. As of now, let me just give return type as void, and then let me just give the name as save employee, something like this. Now as we want to store the data details into the database, we have to add the parameter. So we have to use employee class parameter, something like this, and then we have to use one annotation over here, which is nothing but @request body. So we have to add this @request body in order to take all the details from the body of request, as we are going to use a post mapping. So in the post mapping we have to send the details through the body. So that is the reason we have to use this @request body annotation. Then we have to add one new annotation, which is nothing but @post mapping, and then we have to give a path also. So my path will be like /save/employee, something like this. The next thing that we have to do is we have to create a similar method inside our service layer. But before that, let me just first of all auto-wire the employee service, and then we have to give annotation @auto-wire on this, something like this. The next thing that we can do is we can just go to the employee service class, and inside this we have to again add public. As of now, let me just keep it as a void, and then let me just create a method like save employee. Again, this particular method will take one parameter of type employee, and whatever employee details it will receive, it will just pass it to the database layer. Again, we have to auto wire our employee DAO. So we have to first of all use private employee DAO, and then we have to use annotation @auto wired, something like this. And lastly, what we have to do, we have to just use employee DAO dot save, and then we have to just use employee as a parameter, something like this. Now if you must be wondering like how we used a save method, so let me just show you. If I just go to the employee DAO, we have already used a CRUD repository, and that is the reason we are able to use the save method. And if you just look into the definition of this save method, it basically returns like the details which it saves into the database. So for example, if we are passing the employee type as a parameter to save into the database, then at the end it will, whatever database details it will save it into the table, those details it will return as it is. So we can just directly write return statement, something like this. And as of now we are getting the error. The reason is we have used a void as a return type, but we can just make it employee, something like this. And now if I just go to the controller, we have to just use employee service dot save employee, and then we have to pass the employee details that we have received. Again, we can just use return as it is, as our service is going to return us the employee details. Again, we will be getting some issues, so we have to change the return type to the employee. Now let me just save all these changes, and let me just do one thing. Let me just first of all go to the application properties file, and then let me just change these line number 6 to the update, something like this. And now let me just save all these changes, and let me just start the application, and let's see if we are able to like save all the details into the table or not. So let me just wait till the application is running. Now the application is started on 9090 port. So in order to test this API, we can just use the Postman, or if you just want to use any other API testing tool, then you can just use. So let me just open the Postman, and over here what we have to do, we have to like use http colon slash slash localhost. The port number on which my the Tomcat server is started is 9090. If you have it as a 8080, you can just use that port number. Then we have to use slash, and then we have to give API, which is slash save slash employee. So let me just give it as a slash save slash employee. We have to change mapping to the post mapping. We have to go to the body, and we have to select the raw, and then we have to select the JSON, and over here we have to pass the details that we want to store it into the database. So how we can just do, we can just go to the employee class, and then we have to just copy these keys. So make sure you are just copying it exactly. So let me just copy this employee ID. So as of now, we don't need to pass the employee ID. The reason is it will be automatically generated, so we can just like ignore this, but we have to just copy the employee name, and we have to give the double quotes employee name, and then we have to pass a value. So let me just add my name. Then we have to give a comma and employee contact number. Let me just add some random employee contact number. Then we have to copy this address. Then we have to give a value to the address also. Gender, we have to give a gender like M. Then we have to give a department. Let me just give the department as IT, something like this. And lastly, we have to give employee skills. So let me just use maybe Java, comma Angular, comma AWS, something like this. And now let me just hit on the send button. Let's see what happens. So now if you just see, we got the response, and inside the response we got all the details which we have saved into the table. Along with that, we got the employee ID also, which is nothing but a 1, and this employee ID is automatically generated. Now if I just go to the MySQL workbench, and if I just try to select star from employee table, then we should be able to see the details that we have just saved. So yes, we are able to see all those details over here. So this is how we can create our very first API to save the details into the table. If you still have any questions, let me know into a comment section, and I will try my best to help you out in that case. I hope you enjoyed this session. I'll see you in the next session.